You've been talking, she's not listening, and deep down you know it. You say the right things. You ask how her day went. You compliment her smile. You try to be present, polite, even funny. But her eyes drift. Her replies get shorter. The spark, it's not there. You can feel it slipping, and the worst part, you don't even know why. Here's the truth. Most men never hear it's not that you're not enough. It's that you're invisible in the way that matters most. Women don't remember the guy who talks the most. They remember the man who makes them feel something. And that feeling, connection, safety, mystery, desire, it doesn't come from pickup lines. It comes from presence. The problem is, no one teaches men how to speak in a way that actually reaches a woman. Not just her ears, but her nervous system, her emotions, her instincts. That's what this video is about. There are 4 phrases, 4 simple, powerful shifts that change how she feels the moment you say them. They lower her walls, they pull her in, and most importantly, they make her feel seen, not just heard. If you've ever felt like your words aren't landing, this changes everything. Let's get into it. Number 1. Make her feel seen, not scanned. Here's the thing most men get wrong. They look at a woman, but they don't actually see her. They're scanning, checking her outfit, her body, her smile. They notice the surface, but they miss the soul. And women feel that instantly. When a woman says, "You don't understand me," she's not complaining about logic. She's saying she doesn't feel recognized. She feels like you're talking at her, not to her. And nothing kills attraction faster than that. Now let me give you a real example. Mark, 47, works in marketing. He's divorced, a father of 1 teenage son. After his divorce, he started dating again, but every time he'd meet someone, it fizzled out fast. He told me, "I don't get it. I'm polite. I ask questions, but the women never seem interested after the first couple dates." Here's what was happening. Mark was polite, yes, but his attention was shallow. He'd ask, "So how was your weekend?" Or, "What kind of movies do you like?" And then he'd move on, almost like a checklist. Then he met Diane, 44, a high school counselor. Same pattern at first. Mark asked generic questions, Diane gave short answers. The energy was flat. But then, almost by accident, Mark shifted. Diane mentioned she was exhausted from helping one of her students through a crisis. Instead of nodding and jumping to the next question, Mark paused. He looked at her and said, "I understand. That must take a lot out of you, carrying other people's struggles every day." For the first time, Diane leaned in. Her face softened. She opened up, told him more about what that student was going through and how she sometimes took that weight home at night. The conversation went deep fast. And by the end of that dinner, Diane said, "You're easy to talk to. I feel like you actually get me." That's the power of making her feel seen. And there's science behind it. When you use words like, "I understand," the emotional center of the brain, the amygdala calms down, trust increases, stress hormones drop, she feels safer, more open, more connected. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." To truly understand someone, you have to quiet your ego. You have to stop thinking about your next move, your next line, your next chance to impress. You have to be present. And here's the kicker: when you make a woman feel understood, you separate yourself from 95% of men. Most men talk to women the way they talk to a job interviewer, structured, surface level, focused on presenting themselves. But when you actually tune in, when you acknowledge her feelings instead of just her facts, she relaxes. She feels safe to show more of herself. That's when attraction deepens. Not when you shower her with compliments. Not when you try to impress her with stories. But when you give her the rare gift of presence. Mark later told me, "I didn't realize how powerful that one shift was. I stopped scanning and I started seeing." And guess what? Diane stayed around. Because she felt valued, not just observed. So, here's your takeaway: stop scanning. Start seeing. Use words that tell her, "I understand you," not as a trick, but as the truth. If this hits home for you, put it in the comments, "I understand." And don't move yet, because the next piece takes this even deeper. It's a subtle shift in language that doesn't just make her feel understood, it makes her feel validated in a way most men never deliver. Number 2, say what she hopes to hear. There's a phrase that lands harder than almost anything else you could say. It's not flashy, it's not poetic, it's simple. That makes sense to me. Think about it. Most people walk around defending their choices, explaining their behavior, justifying who they are. They're used to being questioned, corrected, or criticized. But when someone looks at them, listens fully, and says, "That makes sense to me," the walls come down, the tension fades. Suddenly they feel accepted instead of judged. And that's the shift women crave. She doesn't need you to agree with everything she says. She needs to feel that you recognize her experience as valid, that her perspective is worth something, that even if you don't share her view, you can understand why she holds it. This isn't about flattery, it's about recognition. When you say, "That makes sense to me," you're not bending over to please her. You're showing her that you've listened long enough to connect the dots. You're signaling that you're grounded enough to let her world exist without trying to dominate it. Psychologists call this shared reality theory. It means people feel closer to each other when they sense their experiences are acknowledged as real. And in relationships, this matters more than almost anything. Because a woman doesn't bond with a man who always tries to be right. She bonds with the man who makes her feel right to be herself. The Stoics understood this dynamic in their own way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you want to talk first, ask yourself, is it necessary?" That's restraint. That's humility. It's the awareness that not every conversation needs your correction or your counterpoint. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is give space for her truth and let her know it makes sense. Here's why this is so powerful. When you validate her perspective, you're not losing authority, you're gaining trust. You're creating the exact conditions where she'll want to open up more, and the deeper she opens, the more she feels connected. That's attraction, not forced, not manipulated, but earned through presence. The danger, though, is using this phrase without depth. If you throw out, "That makes sense," like a reflex, it falls flat. It sounds empty. The real impact comes when you connect it to something she's just shared. For example, if she talks about being overwhelmed with work, don't just say, "That makes sense." Say, "That makes sense to me because anyone carrying that much pressure would feel exhausted." Notice the difference. Now you're not only validating, you're showing her that you've absorbed her reality. You've painted a picture of her experience, and you've acknowledged it as logical. That's rare. And that's magnetic. And here's the paradox: when you validate her, she doesn't see you as weaker. She sees you as stronger. Because most men are too trapped in their egos to ever say, "You're right to feel that way." But when you can, you show her you're not fragile. You're secure enough to recognize truth outside of yourself. That's the kind of strength Stoicism builds. Not loud, not boastful, quiet, centered. The strength that says, "I don't lose myself by acknowledging you." So remember this: don't try to prove her wrong just to protect your pride. Use words that remind her she's not crazy for feeling what she feels. Give her the safety of recognition, because when she feels understood and validated, she's not just listening, she's drawn in. If this is a standard you want to hold from now on, own it in the comments. I make sense. And don't go anywhere. Because what's coming next is a phrase even more powerful, one that satisfies a universal craving, and when you use it right, it shifts the entire balance of who's chasing who. Number 3, validate her without losing your edge. Few things are more powerful in a conversation than these 2 words. You're right. But here's where most men mess it up. They either never say it because they're terrified of looking weak, or they say it too quickly, turning themselves into people pleasers. Both extremes destroy attraction. The real art is validating her without losing your edge, showing her that you can recognize truth in what she says without giving away your authority or slipping into approval seeking. Let me give you an example. Tom, 52, runs his own construction business in Ohio. Recently divorced, he's back in the dating world. He met Karen, 48, at a local charity event. She's sharp, independent, the kind of woman who's been through enough to spot weakness in a man immediately. On their second date, they got into a conversation about relationships. Karen said, "I think most men don't know how to listen, they just want to fix things." Tom could have reacted defensively. He could have tried to argue that he's different, that not all men are like that. That's what most guys would do, protect their ego. But Tom didn't flinch. He looked at her calmly and said, "You're right. A lot of men do try to fix things too quickly. I've been guilty of that myself." Karen's reaction. She leaned back, smiled and said, "Exactly. It's refreshing to hear a man admit that." Now notice something. Tom didn't lose his edge. He didn't grovel. He didn't fall into apology mode. He simply acknowledged reality. That simple validation disarmed Karen. It showed her he wasn't insecure. It showed her he could handle truth without collapsing. That's the key. Your right lands when it comes from strength. From a place where you're not threatened by her perspective. From a place where your ego isn't fragile. The Stoics lived this mindset. Seneca once wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." A man secure enough to say, "You're right," has already anticipated that being wrong or admitting someone else is right doesn't diminish him. It actually strengthens him. Women feel this at a deep level, because underneath every interaction she's scanning, can this man handle me? Can he hear me without trying to control me? Can he acknowledge me without losing himself? If you can answer those questions through your presence, you stand apart from nearly every man she's met. But here's the trap. If you throw your right around too casually, it feels fake. It feels like flattery. It becomes transparent approval-seeking, and women have a radar for that. They'll sense when you're saying it to smooth things over, rather than because you mean it. The strength lies in balance. Use it when it's true. Use it when it matters. Don't be afraid of it, but don't hand it out like candy either. Tom told me later, "For years I thought admitting a woman was right made me look weak. But when I finally started doing it authentically, I realized it made me look stronger." That's the paradox. What you fear makes you weak actually makes you magnetic if it's grounded in truth. So here's the move. Validate her when it's real. Say you're right without apology, without over-explaining, without needing approval. Just stand in it. And when you do, she'll feel something she doesn't feel often with men: respect. If this is a standard you want to live by, let it show in the comments. I stand strong, and don't go anywhere, because what's coming next is even rarer than validation. It's the one move that flips the entire dynamic without you saying almost anything at all. Number 4. Let silence make her lean in. Most men can't handle silence. They feel the gap and rush to fill it with words, jokes, stories, nervous chatter. But silence, when used right, is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever have. Because silence doesn't push her away, it pulls her in. When you look someone in the eye and simply say, "I'm listening," then stop talking, you flip the script. Suddenly the attention isn't on what you're saying, it's on what she's willing to reveal. And that's when she leans in. Think about how rare that is. In a world full of distractions, full of men waiting for their turn to speak, how often does a woman sit across from someone who actually listens, not scanning for his moment to respond? Not nodding half-heartedly while scrolling a phone, but really listening. Silence creates space, and in that space, trust grows. The more she feels heard, the more she opens. The more she opens, the deeper the connection runs. Neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that deep listening activates the brain's reward system. When someone feels listened to, their brain lights up as if they were given money or a gift. That's how powerful it is. Your silence combined with presence feels like a reward. The Stoics understood this long before psychology confirmed it. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more than we say." That wasn't just about manners. It was about power. The power of restraint. The strength of a man who doesn't need to dominate every moment with his voice. And here's the paradox. Silence doesn't make you look passive. It makes you magnetic, because she starts filling the silence with more of herself. She reveals her thoughts, her feelings, her vulnerabilities. And when she does, she feels a bond that no witty line could ever create. But here's the trap. Silence only works if it's grounded in presence. If you're zoning out, if you're quiet but not connected, she'll feel it. Silence isn't about shutting up. It's about tuning in. Your eyes, your posture, your calm attention, that's what makes silence powerful. So next time she's speaking, resist the urge to interrupt. Don't rush to solve. Don't try to impress. Just breathe, hold her gaze and say softly, "I'm listening." Then prove it by doing nothing but listening. She'll remember that moment. Not because of what you said, but because of how you made her feel safe, valued, seen. And here's where I want to pause. If you've been watching this far, it means you're serious about building a stronger, more grounded version of yourself. Not just with women, but in every part of life. That's why I want to invite you to become a channel member. Inside we go deeper, beyond the free content, into strategies and Stoic practices that transform how you show up in the world. If you're ready for that, hit the join button below. But for now, let's bring this back. Silence is not empty. It's full of power. And when you use it well, she'll lean in. So if this resonates with you, let it show in the comments. I listen. And don't stop here, because what comes next is a shift that takes everything you've learned so far and shows you how to turn presence into lasting influence. Number 5. Speak fewer words with more weight. Here's the mistake most men make. They think more words equal more influence. They keep talking, explaining, filling every silence with noise, hoping that somewhere in there something will land. But the truth is, the more you talk, the less she feels. The more you rush to fill space, the less powerful you appear. Influence doesn't come from endless talking. It comes from saying less and making every word count. Take Robert, 55, a retired firefighter from Michigan. Solid man, dependable, respected in his community. After losing his wife, he slowly stepped back into dating. He met Emily, 49, a nurse who had also been through her share of loss. On their first few dates, Robert felt pressure to keep her entertained. He'd tell story after story, barely leaving room for Emily to share. At the end of one dinner, she smiled politely but didn't seem moved. Robert later admitted, "I thought I had to fill every gap or she'd get bored." The opposite was true. On their next meeting, Robert shifted. Instead of rushing to fill the air, he listened. And when he did speak, he chose his words carefully. Emily told him about the challenges of working long shifts, being tired, but still showing up for patients. Robert didn't launch into advice or long explanations. He simply looked at her and said, "That takes strength. Not everyone could do what you do." Emily paused. Her eyes softened. That one sentence carried more weight than anything he had said in the hours before. Why? Because it was real. It was intentional. It wasn't just words, it was recognition. That's the difference. When you speak fewer words, they land deeper. They show that you're not scrambling for approval. You're not performing. You're grounded enough to let silence do half the work and your words do the rest. The Stoics lived by this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Fewer words, heavier meaning. That's what creates presence. That's what makes people lean in when you finally speak. And here's the irony, women don't want endless chatter. They don't remember the man who spoke the most. They remember the man whose words carried weight, the man who said just enough to make them feel seen, respected, and intrigued. Robert told me later I realized I didn't need to impress her with stories. I needed to connect with her with truth. And that's the essence of this principle. Stop using your words like confetti. Start using them like currency. Spend them wisely. Make each one count. And when you do, she'll lean in waiting for more. Not because you're withholding, but because your words actually mean something. So here's your move. Slow down, speak less, choose with intention, and let your presence carry the rest. If you're ready to make your words count from now on, say it in the comments. I speak with weight. And don't miss what's ahead, because the next shift exposes something subtle, something most men never even notice. But it's often the difference between being seen as strong and being written off as weak. Number 6. Mirror her emotions, not her chaos. Every man has been there. She's upset. Her words are sharp. Her energy is off. And your first instinct, match her chaos. Raise your voice. Get defensive or shut down completely. But that reaction doesn't build attraction, it destroys it. Here's the truth. Women don't need you to mirror their chaos. They need you to mirror their emotion while staying calm. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes her trust you. Think about it. If she's stressed and you panic too, now you're both drowning. If she's angry and you explode back, now you're just fighting for control. But if she's upset and you stay centered, acknowledging how she feels, without getting swept up, you instantly become the steady ground she didn't know she needed. This doesn't mean ignoring her feelings. It doesn't mean brushing her off. It means separating the signal from the noise. The signal is her emotion, frustration, sadness, overwhelm. The noise is the chaos, the sharp words, the exaggerated tone, the heat of the moment. Your job is to recognize the signal without feeding the noise. For example, instead of snapping back when she's upset, you can simply say, "I can see this matters to you," or "I hear the frustration in your voice." You're acknowledging the emotion without fueling the chaos. That alone diffuses the tension. Modern psychology backs this up. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about naming them and responding from strength. When you do this, her nervous system calms. She shifts from fight mode to connection mode. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The same principle applies here. You can't control her emotions, but you can control how you respond. If your reaction is calm, measured, and grounded, you not only hold your frame, you give her space to come back down. And here's the hidden benefit: when you stay calm, she feels safe. And safety for a woman is the foundation of attraction. Safety doesn't mean boring. Safety means she can trust that no matter how stormy her emotions get, you won't be pulled into the storm. It's strength without aggression, calm without weakness, presence without panic. But here's the trap: many men mistake calmness for coldness. They think holding frame means shutting down emotionally. That's not it. If you disconnect, she'll feel abandoned. The key is empathy without chaos. Acknowledge her emotion, but don't become it. So next time she's spinning, don't fight her and don't flee. Stand your ground. Mirror the emotion: "I hear that you're upset," and hold your frame. Because when you do, she feels both understood and anchored. And that combination is rare. And when something is rare, it becomes irresistible. That's why the strongest men aren't the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who can look chaos in the eye and stay calm. And that calm makes them unforgettable. If this is the standard you're choosing to live by, say it in the comments: "I stay calm," and don't miss what's coming. Because the next principle reveals how to use your attention like the rarest currency, and once you understand it, you'll never spend it carelessly again. Number 7. Use attention like currency, not charity. Here's the uncomfortable truth: your attention is one of the most valuable things you have. And yet most men throw it around like it's worth nothing. They hand it out freely, texting all day, liking every post, complimenting every little thing, hoping it will win her over. But when attention costs nothing, it means nothing. Think about how money works. $1 only has value because it's limited. You can't print endless cash without destroying its worth. The same is true with attention. When you flood her with it, she doesn't feel special, she feels smothered. When you give it in measured doses, when it's earned, it becomes powerful. Let me show you what this looks like. David, 50, runs a small business in Texas. After his divorce, he started dating again and quickly fell into the trap of over-giving attention. He'd text women good morning, good night, and everything in between. He'd compliment their outfits, their hair, even the way they ordered coffee. It wasn't creepy, he genuinely meant it, but it came across as needy. Then came Sarah, 46, a lawyer he met through friends. At first, David did the same thing non-stop. Messages, endless validation. Sarah grew distant. She started replying slower. Finally, a buddy pulled David aside and told him, "Man, you're treating attention like charity. You're just handing it out. No wonder she doesn't value it." So David pulled back. He stopped texting constantly. He focused more on his own life, his workouts, his business, his son's basketball games. And when he did give Sarah attention, it was intentional. He'd say, "I like how passionate you get when you talk about your work," or "That color looks incredible on you." Not random filler, not charity, real, specific, valuable. Sarah noticed immediately. She started initiating more. She dressed up for their dates. She leaned in closer when he spoke. Why? Because his attention was no longer guaranteed. It meant something. That's the shift you need to make. Stop flooding her with cheap signals. Start treating your attention like currency, rare, valuable, and given with intention. The Stoics had a word for this: sophrosyne, self-control, moderation. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "If it is not necessary, do not do it." Apply that to attention. If it's not necessary, don't give it. Because when you give less with more meaning, it carries weight. And here's the paradox: when you stop throwing attention around, you actually become more attractive. Because now she has to earn it. She has to bring energy, effort, and presence to the table if she wants more of yours. That flips the dynamic completely. David later told me, "I realized I was bankrupting myself. I thought giving more would get me more. But when I gave less better, she actually valued me more." So here's your move. Guard your attention like money. Don't hoard it, but don't hand it out freely either. Spend it where it matters. Invest it in someone who invests back. And when you do give it, make it count. If this is the standard you're ready to hold, lock it in the comments: "I value attention." And don't stop here, because the next shift shows you how to respond in a way that keeps your frame unshaken even when things get tense. And that, my friend, is what separates men she forgets from men she can't get out of her head. Number 8. Respond with calm, not approval. One of the fastest ways men lose power in conversations is by chasing approval. She says something, and instead of responding with presence, you nod too fast, laugh too loud, agree too easily. You're not really calm, you're performing. And she feels it instantly. Approval chasing kills attraction because it puts her above you. It says, "I need you to like me. I need your validation." And the moment you fall into that frame, she loses interest. Because deep down, she doesn't want a man who bends to win her over. She wants a man who can stand steady in himself. Responding with calm is completely different. Calm doesn't mean cold. It doesn't mean emotionless. It means you don't react out of insecurity. You don't jump to please. You take your time. You let her words land. And then you respond from a place of centered strength. Picture this: she tells a story with some sharp edges, maybe even testing you with a little challenge. Most guys rush to agree or overcompensate with compliments, trying to smooth everything out. But a calm man, He listens. He nods slowly. He breathes. Then he answers with a measured response. Not rushed, not desperate, just steady. That steadiness creates respect, because calm communicates. I'm not shaken by your energy. I'm not here to win you over. I'm here because I choose to be. The Stoics lived this principle every day. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Apply this to your interactions." Her mood, her tone, even her disapproval, none of it has power over you unless you hand it over. Calmness is you holding on to that power. And here's what most men don't realize: calm is attractive because it's rare. Most men are reactive. They're quick to anger, quick to defend, quick to seek approval. A man who slows down, who stays rooted, who doesn't need to be validated, he feels different. He feels solid. Women are experts at sensing this difference. When you're calm, she relaxes. When you chase approval, she pulls away. It's that simple. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore her or act indifferent. Indifference is just another mask for insecurity. True calm is engaged. You're listening, you're present, you're connected, but you're not bending yourself out of shape to earn points. You're simply standing as you are. And when you can do that, something powerful happens. Her energy starts to match yours. Instead of you being pulled into her storm, she's drawn into your calm. That's influence. Not because you tried to win her over, but because you didn't need to. So here's the move. The next time you feel the urge to nod too fast or agree just to keep the peace, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, am I responding from calm or am I chasing approval? Then choose calm. Because the man who responds with calm is the man she respects. And respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. If this is the standard, you're ready to hold yourself to claim it in the comments. I stay steady. And don't go anywhere. Because what's coming next is about turning your natural curiosity into the kind of magnetic energy that makes her lean forward, wondering what you'll say next. Number 9. Make curiosity your flirting style. Most men think flirting means cheesy lines, endless compliments, or trying to make her laugh non-stop. But here's the secret. The most attractive style of flirting isn't about performance, it's about curiosity. Real, genuine curiosity. When you're curious, you're not chasing, you're exploring. You're not trying to impress her with how much you know, you're showing interest in discovering who she is, and that feels magnetic. Because women don't want to feel like an audience to your show. They want to feel like the center of your focus. Let me give you an example. James, 54, works in finance and had been single for years. He met Laura, 50, a high school art teacher, at a wine tasting event. At first, James did what most men do. He cracked jokes, threw out compliments, even tried to tell impressive stories about his career. Laura smiled politely but didn't seem engaged. Then something shifted. Laura mentioned that she paints in her free time. Instead of nodding and moving on, James leaned in and asked, "What do you feel when you're painting?" That one question lit her up. She spent the next 20 minutes talking about how painting helped her relax, how it connected her to her late mother, and how she lost herself in the colors. James barely said a word. He just listened, nodded, and asked a few more thoughtful questions. By the end of the night, Laura wasn't just polite. She was leaning closer, laughing, and clearly invested in the conversation. Why? Because curiosity is rare. Most men only ask surface questions. What do you do? Where are you from? What movies do you like? But when you dig deeper, not to interrogate but to explore, you create connection. You make her feel interesting, alive, and valuable. The Stoics, believe it or not, pointed to this principle long before modern psychology. Socrates, whose teachings influenced Stoicism, was famous for saying, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." Apply that to attraction. Don't assume you already know her. Approach with curiosity. Approach with the humility of wanting to learn, not the arrogance of wanting to show off. And here's the beauty of it. Curiosity makes flirting effortless. You don't have to come up with clever lines or scripted moves. All you have to do is actually care. Ask about the story behind her passions. Ask about the meaning behind her choices. Show that you're paying attention to her world, not just her looks. James later told me I realized I didn't have to entertain her. I just had to be curious. And that's what flipped the entire interaction. Curiosity also keeps you mysterious, because when you ask the right questions, you reveal less about yourself and more about her. She starts wondering about you. She starts thinking, why does he get me to talk like this? Why do I feel so comfortable opening up to him? That's attraction at its purest. So here's your move. Drop the rehearsed lines. Stop trying to perform. Instead, practice real curiosity. When she shares something, go deeper. Not with judgment, not with approval seeking, but with genuine interest. Because a man who's curious is a man who makes her feel alive. If this is how you want to show up from now on, write it in the comments. I stay curious and don't go anywhere, because the final principle ties everything together. It's the truth about why she chases and why, once you understand it, you'll never look at attraction the same way again. Number 10. Say less and she imagines more. Here's a truth. Most men never realize what you don't say often speaks louder than what you do. Attraction thrives in space. It feeds on mystery, on curiosity, on the gaps her mind wants to fill. When you give her every detail, when you overshare, when you talk endlessly, there's nothing left for her to wonder about. And without wonder, there's no chase. Think about the movies that stick with you. It's not the ones that explain everything. It's the ones that leave you with questions that make you think about what might have happened. Your conversations with women work the same way. When you hold back just a little, when you let silence breathe, when you don't rush to explain every move or justify every choice you give, her mind room to wander. And that wandering is where attraction grows. Why? Because imagination is powerful. Neuroscience shows that the brain responds almost the same way to imagined experiences as to real ones. When you leave space, her mind fills it in, and often she fills it in better than reality ever could. Now let's connect this to Stoicism. Epictetus taught silence is safer than speech. The Stoics believed in restraint not because they feared words, but because they understood their weight. When you speak less, your words mean more. And when you leave gaps, those gaps become magnets. Here's the mistake most men make. They think connection is about constant sharing. They dump their whole life story in one sitting. They reveal every detail of their feelings, their past, their future plans. But instead of creating closeness, it often creates fatigue. She feels no anticipation, no unfolding story, just a wall of information. Contrast that with a man who shares in layers, who answers a question with just enough detail to be real, but not so much that nothing is left to discover. He says, "That's a story for another time," and lets her lean in curious. He laughs at a memory but doesn't reveal the whole scene she's left, imagining what happened. That's not withholding, that's creating intrigue. And here's the deeper truth. Saying less is a form of control, not control over her, but over yourself. It shows discipline. It shows you're not desperate to spill everything for approval. You're comfortable letting her wait, letting her wonder, letting her earn the deeper parts of you. That restraint is rare, and rare is attractive. Women don't fantasize about men who explain themselves to death. They fantasize about the man who keeps them guessing. The one who reveals himself slowly, like chapters in a book you can't put down. So here's your takeaway: stop over-explaining. Stop rushing to fill silence. Say less, share in layers, and trust that what you leave unsaid is often more powerful than what you reveal. Because in that silence, in that restraint, she doesn't lose interest, she leans forward. She imagines, she wonders, and the more she imagines, the more she invests. This is the final shift. Together, these principles transform how you show up, from a man chasing attention to a man who commands it. From a man trying to impress to a man who simply is. Remember, this attraction isn't about doing more, it's about being more. And sometimes being more means saying less. You've just walked through 10 shifts that most men never even think about. 10 ways to speak less, mean more, and flip the script so she feels you instead of just hearing you. These aren't tricks. They're not pickup lines. They're simple, powerful shifts in how you show up, and they change everything. Because when you speak with weight, when you listen with presence, when you hold back just enough to let her imagination do the work, you stop chasing. She starts leaning in. And that's the difference between being forgettable and being the man she can't get out of her head. If this hit home for you, don't just leave it here. Hit subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's video. We're dropping new insights every single day. And if you're ready to go deeper, to take this beyond YouTube into the kind of work that transforms your relationships, your mindset, and your entire life, consider becoming a channel member. That's where we go past the surface and build the discipline, the presence, the edge of a man who leads with strength. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.